Hey, well, welcome everyone to the Legislative How-To Training info session. This is co-hosted by Powerful Moms Who Care and the Better Utah Institute. So Powerful Moms Who Care is an organization of low-income women working towards safer communities and healthier families, especially for people living in extreme poverty and struggling with homelessness. And the group works to increase the availability of low-income housing for families, as well as accessible, affordable childcare, healthcare, and education and job training. And I'll have the rest of our hosts do their intro.
Melissa, do you want to intro the Better Utah Institute?
Sure, I'd love to. So we are here from the Better Utah Institute, and what we do is promote civic engagement and good government. So we're trying to educate people about what is going on in government, how you can get involved, and that's about the gist of it.
Oh, Melissa, you're muted. I don't know what happened.
I was saying it must be Saturday morning, and it really must be Saturday morning. So I'm Melissa Nelson-Stippich, and I am the Civic Engagement Coordinator here at the Better Utah Institute. And I'm just here to hopefully have my sound on and educate you about how you can get involved. And I'll hand it to Lauren.
Yeah, my name's Lauren Simpson. I'm the Policy Director at Better Utah. Happy to be here. The legislative session wrapped up last night. So, so I think today we're just going to give a general overview of the legislative process. I can talk about, general things that happened this legislative session, and then we can answer any questions, if that sounds good. I don't know, Audrey, did you have anything else?
No, we can just jump in. Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. So I can just kind of give a quick rundown of some things that happened during this year's legislative session, and then I'll hand it off to Melissa, and she can kind of walk you through the process. But generally, Utah had a really good year as far as the legislative session goes. There were some really harmful policies that did not pass, and some really good policies that ended up passing. There were a few bills that will create more affordable housing supply that passed this year, and there was an appropriation, meaning just like the legislature set aside like the most money that they've ever set aside for affordable housing, at least in recent years. So that's really exciting. There was another big appropriation, another big chunk of change set aside for infrastructure, including double tracking the front runner. So hopefully public transit can be, a few years down the road can be, more convenient and more accessible. There's some really great stuff that happened on mental health. Utah's going to be funding a 988 hotline. So if you're in a mental health crisis, you can call that line instead of calling 911 and, getting connected with the police. Let me see what else. The last bill that passed last night was a task force to address food security in the state. That was sponsored by Senator Luz Escamilla. So we're really excited that that one was the last bill that was passed by the House and Senate. And then there was, a lot of harmful stuff that could have passed but didn't. So we're really excited. We're really excited. We're really pleased with how the session turned out. And if anybody has any specifics on like bills that they heard about or wants to talk more in detail about those policies, I'm happy to take questions on that at the end.
That's great. So we at the Better Utah group have two kind of arms of our organization, and the Better Utah Institute is where we talk about we kind of focus on educating you about how government works. And then Alliance for a Better Utah is where we have, what would you call it, Lauren? Like it's more our advocacy arm, and allows us to maybe work on transparency and calling different elected officials to task. And so a great thing that we have on the betterutah.org website is a bill tracker that Lauren and many of the people who we work with have put together. And so you can go to betterutah.org to see what has been going on this session, but also we'll be publishing a progress report, which I think really helps to understand all of this stuff, because it can just be so overwhelming. You hear about it in the news. If you're on social media, you may hear things, and it's just really overwhelming. And so I think this progress report, which we'll have coming out within the month, right, Lauren? Is that the So, I mean, I think it's a great way to be able to kind of say, like, what just happened? Because I heard all of this stuff going on in the news, and it's just like, feels like it goes. I mean, I work here, and it still feels like it goes right over my head. So it's very helpful. Does anybody have any questions so far about the session itself? Okay, well, then maybe what I'll start with, because again, like it can be so overwhelming, is to talk about how you can find out who represents you up at the Capitol during this time. And actually, let me back up just a little bit and let's talk about like what just happened. So all of these people were convening at the Capitol for the past 45 days. And passing these laws that Lauren was just talking about. And so wherever you live in the valley, or not in the valley, in the state, you have two people up there representing you, right? You have a senator and you have a representative. And so we want you to get familiar with who are those people who are up there representing you. And so a great way to do that is to go to le.utah.gov. And there's a section there just right on the front page that says My Legislators, and you can put in your address and it will pop out who your senator is and who your representative is. And when you click on those, it will take you to information about how to get into contact with them. And that's a pretty formal way to start engaging with them, because you can email them, you can kind of see what committees they're on. But sometimes that, like, again, feels really overwhelming if this is like your first kind of introduction to this. So what I recommend is, if you are on social media, like, just Google these people who represent you, right? Because almost all of them are going to have some kind of presence online. So you could either, follow their Twitter or their Instagram or like their Facebook page. And sometimes they even have like email newsletters you can sign up for. And that's kind of like a soft introduction, because I think it can be incredibly uncomfortable to just like, boom, I'm in your inbox and I don't know anything about you. But so I don't know about you, like I like to stalk people just like a little bit before I start interfacing with them. Lauren, did you have something to add?
Yeah, like, okay, I'll ask a question. Melissa, are these the same people who are in Congress? Like, is Mitt Romney one of Utah's senators?
Great question. So no, we actually have different levels of government, right? And so we hear about all of these people like Mitt Romney, like Mike Lee, who are actually on the, like, what do I want to say, like national level, and they're working in Washington, D.C. And then we have this next level of government, which is our state level. And so these are just our state representatives or senators, who we call legislators. And usually you will hear when we're talking about on the national level, you'll hear like Congress, right? So that is the difference between that. Thank you for that wonderful question, Lauren. So yeah, we are, we're following our people, our local state people is what I want to say. We're following them on our social media, and we're hearing about things that are going on. How are we hearing about those things? So that's kind of the second part, is that not only do you want to follow the people who actually represent you, but you also want to get engaged with organizations that are representing groups that are the issues that you're interested in. So, a lot of the things that Lauren was just talking about, like transit or food security, things like housing. There are organizations just like Crossroads and other organizations, right, that work specifically in these issue areas. And sometimes they will have emails, they will have organizations that, again, we would encourage you to start following, because they're going to be pushing out information about what's going on at the state capitol, and then kind of helping you to get informed about those issues that you care about. So those are like the kind of entry level things that I always recommend, that where people start. But then let's say something happens that you're really passionate about and you are ready to hit that email button. We have a bunch of tips for you about how to do that, because there's a way to do it successfully, and there's a way to kind of just be shouting into the void. And we want you feel strongly enough about this, we want your voice to be heard, right? And the ultimate goal here is to change what you care about and make sure that your voice is heard. And so we have some tips for that. So if you are thinking about your elected official as just like someone in power who's really frustrating you and you're very angry at, I think a lot of the times our instinct is just to kind of be very confrontational. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, but we need to figure out, like, how can you share your message so that it gets heard. And one of the things that we see a lot when people do write letters is that they forget some of those common niceties, because you are so emotional and worked up about an issue. So just like addressing your email, maybe with a salutation, right? Like, hello, Senator, hello, Representative. So that's just the first thing, just a basic nicety. But then also what we recommend is that you mention that you are their constituent, because and that means that they represent you. If you are their constituent, right? You live in their area. And one of the reasons we say this is because they are accountable to you, right? Like, you hopefully voted them in, or did not, but you participated in the process. And so they're going to listen to you a lot more because they're actually accountable to their constituents. So what we say is, like, in the first, even in the subject line, if you're sending an email, say, hello, if it's a specific bill that you're reaching out to in the subject line, I would include that as well, but just, from a constituent. And in your first sentence, like, hello, Senator Kitchen, I am Melissa and I live in your district and I have something I want to talk to you about. So that's like the very beginning, right? And then while you're talking about your issue, we really encourage you to talk about why it has brought up those emotions for you. What's your story, and speak to why it matters to you, instead of maybe just saying, like, this is a bogus bill and I'm really angry about it, please do something about it. Share just briefly, very briefly, because these people don't have a lot of time, especially in session, but just make it known, like, why does this matter so much to you? And again, like, just I always say, like, what sways you when someone comes and speaks to you, right? Like when we get those telemarketer calls, like you hang up right away, right? Because it doesn't feel personal. It doesn't feel like, a lot of the time it is like not a real person. But I think that it's really important to make that emotional appeal from your perspective, because no one else has that same perspective, and that's, can be incredibly moving. um then we would encourage you, no matter how angry you are, to try not to swear or use caps lock, right? Like those things that are going to kind of turn us all off when someone is communicating with us. And then sign your name and, include ways that they can contact you. Um, so that is kind of like the basic beginning. Any questions there so far? No? Oh,
Um,
Lauren.
I might jump in. I'm just going to
Yeah,
share my
please.
screen real quick and
Oh,
give
yay.
a visual of some stuff that Melissa was saying. Just because I'm a visual learner, and that and that helps me.
Fabulous.
So I'm going to share my screen. So here, the page that I'm on right now is actually the Better Utah Institute webpage. It says betterutahinstitute.org. If you click up at the top, you can drop down and see a legislative hub. And this can give you like basic information about how the legislative session works. You know, what it is, what the process is. There also is a good explainer of the rundown that Melissa just gave about how to write, how to contact, your lawmaker. Um, and then down at the bottom, we have this video to understanding the legislative website, which I think is a good introduction if that's something that you're new to. Um, this is the legislative web, like the homepage. Um, and so if you scroll down here, if you click My Legislators, that's the spot that Melissa was talking about where you can enter your address. If you enter your zip code or your address, I'm going to enter, I'll just enter mine. And so it will zoom in on the map and show you exactly who your state representative and who your state senator is. So that's been a really helpful tool for me. Also, if you go back to the homepage, if you're ever wondering, during the legislative session, if something is going on that day, you can just pull up this calendar tab, and you can see like all the meetings that are scheduled for that day. And that's like, that's how we follow along with it too during the session. This is like, it's a really good web page. This is kind of what everybody uses. So
Yeah, that's so helpful. Thank you. And yeah, I think if you go to betterutahinstitute.org, that's where that legislative hub is. And so I'm not sure if you noticed, but like we even have a tool where you can email your legislators straight from that page as well. So, and hopefully we're building out more functionalities all the time on that hub. So more things will be coming. What else can we talk about? What would you?
Oh, one thought I had is when you're talking about a bill or policy, and this is like state law, it's happening during the legislative session, all bills have to pass both chambers. So if you're concerned about like, well, which one do I talk to? You can just talk to both. And honestly, a good lawmaker is going to want to hear from you, even if they're not the exact right person for that complaint. Like they will help you and they will pass on that message and help you get connected with whoever you need to talk to. But if it's a bill that you're concerned about, if it has HB at the beginning, that means it's a House bill. So it starts in the House. So your House representative would be probably the first person who that will be coming to. And if it's an SB, that means Senate bill. So it'll be starting on the Senate. But both of those lawmakers are going to have to be taking a vote on a bill at some point. It's just like which side gets it first. So feel free to talk to both of them if there's an issue that you care about. And you can also reach out to your lawmakers, even if there's not like a specific bill during the legislative session. If it's just like an issue in your community or something that you feel like the government should be doing that it's not doing, like talk to them about that too. You can always send them an email. They get lots of emails from people all the time, so it's not a big deal for them to read an email from a constituent. They're not going to be, you know, trying to pick apart what you're saying. Like, you don't have to have good grammar, you don't have to say it well. Really, they just want to hear your story.
Yeah, I excuse me, I think that's so true. And another thing that we've heard from lawmakers is that if you do, have an issue that you care deeply about that you feel isn't being addressed, that the hardest time to deal with it is during that 45-day session. So if there's something that you want them to be addressing prior to the session, then maybe that's the best time to reach out, because they may even have time to meet with you. One thing we neglected to say about these people who are in the legislature, they have other jobs. This is like their 45-day gig, and then they meet during interim session, which is like just, what is it, like really just one day, but it's like a week in maybe out of the month. And then they're doing other things, like they're doctors, lawyers, teachers. And so you can certainly reach out to them during those times, but just be aware, like, they also have their other lives, but they will have way more time for you when it isn't during the session, if it's something that isn't going on right then. But if it is going on during the session, by all means, reach out to them, because your voice needs to be heard. They need to know what is going on.
So
Lauren, do you?
Yeah, Tamara had a comment in the chat. I'm just going to read it aloud. Just how do you see all the bills that have already passed and those that are in current limbo to decide? So I'm going to share my screen again and pull up the legislative webpage, the legislative website. So we're on the legislative website. There's not a great way to see like a comprehensive list of every single bill and what the status is on that bill. And that's the reason that a lot of groups, us included, make bill trackers, because there are like, generally there are like 1,200 bills that are like created each session, and then like 500 or 600 of those pass. And it's hard to, and they're on like all different kinds of topics. So there's not one master list that shows whether something is passed or not. If there's a specific issue that you're looking for, you can find individual bills, or if you know like the number of a bill, that's kind of like, that's the easiest way. If you know that there's a number of a bill that you really care about, that's kind of like the code that can get you there. So you could look up any bill individually. I'm going to pull up Senator Escamilla's bill from last night that I talked about earlier. So here's the page that comes up, and you see who the sponsor is. This is like the number one sponsor. The floor sponsor is the person, like Luz Escamilla is a senator and Melissa Ballard is a representative. So the bill's going to start with Luz Escamilla, and then when it moves to the House, Representative Ballard will like take that bill under her wings and help get it through. So we see the main text of the bill, and then you go to the status tab, you can see everything that happened on that individual bill. So bills go to a committee before they go to a full chamber. So it starts out and it went to the Senate Senate Natural Resources Committee, and it passed with a favorable recommendation. So we know it passed. Then it went to the Senate, and bills always get 2 votes in the Senate, 2 separate votes. So we see it passed the Senate, and then normally it would get a committee meeting in the House, but it's not technically required. And since it was the last day of the session, they skipped it, and it got a vote. It got a vote in the House. The third reading means like the vote that matters. That's like the vote to pass it. And we have a video explaining all of this on our website. So, but then you can see, it passed, and it was signed by the president and sent for enrolling. So that means like it's going on the books, and then Governor Cox can sign it, or he cannot sign it, and it'll still pass into law. Or he could veto it, but this is a good one, so he won't veto it.
Lauren, will you show us our bill tracker? So just to kind of show.
Yeah, for sure. betterutah.org. Now I'm going to go down to, here's a link to our 2021 bill tracker. And there are lots of organizations that have these, but here's like a comprehensive list of the bills that we think are most important that we're paying attention to. And so these, I haven't updated them yesterday, so they're a little dated, but you can see we'll update these on our end, because that, like, the legislative webpage can be pretty confusing. So this is our list of bills that we think are important. And some of them have action alerts attached to them. So you can see like whether we support or oppose it, and then what the last thing that happened to it is. But that would be, oh, can you narrow it down by area and LFA? I don't know what that means. I will say on the legislative webpage, I'm going to share my screen again. You can just like, if there's a topic that you care about, you can just like type it into the search bar, like foods security, which is really specific. Like, it's hard. The legislative language can sometimes be really complicated. So sometimes, like, if you typed in hungry kids, that might not come up with anything. But you can pull up bills this way and see, what's been done this year, or in the past on it. Everything, like, but you can search by topic on bills, and you can search the code too and see what's already the law. So yeah, that's not a perfect answer. I also wish that the legislature had like a comprehensive list. I think that would be a great thing for the website. But right now it does not.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why I was saying, like, go to our bill tracker or a bill tracker of an organization that you is working in the issue area you care about, because those are going to be just a little bit more easy to narrow down like that. Like, if you look at ours, we have subject area, I think, maybe where you can filter it to just look at that specific area. Any more questions? Nope. Okay, what else should we address? We have a little more time, right?
I was kind of wondering, maybe if you could just talk a little about that affordable housing bill that passed and kind of what that could mean and what's exciting about it.
Yeah, so there are a few different ones. One would allow, or like would require cities to allow people who live in big houses with like a mother-in-law apartment downstairs, like they would be allowed to rent that to somebody. So that's like an untapped resource of, housing that's available in places where it's not. There was also a bill that would like incentivize development, affordable housing development. And that came with the big price tag, like the big appropriation to make sure that that happens, that money is there to help developers build affordable housing. And there was another one that kind of puts together a plan so that with all of these investments in transit that we're doing right now, like with the front runner, that we would, plan our communities holistically to make sure that, we're putting lots of housing around transit hubs. So if you don't have a car, you can live close to public transportation, and have like a safe and walkable community, which we think is a smart way to grow. Utah right now has a lot of sprawl, like cities just kind of like go out and out and out, which means, it takes a long time to drive places and you might not have a grocery store that's close to your house. But if you design, apartment complexes or, lots of housing and affordable housing around transit areas, that helps people. It just makes sense from from the way you want your city to be designed, and it helps people live close to the transportation that they rely on. So there have been some news articles about it. I can find a couple and drop them in the chat. But
Thanks. Yeah, we can share that with people too.
yeah. There were also some great bills this year. There's one specifically that I'm thinking of, and I can't remember if it ended up passing or not. Yeah, so it looked like it did. There's a bill from Representative Marcia Judkins that addresses some renters' rights, and it says like landlords can't charge hidden fees, like they have to disclose all of their fees up front, which I think is a really great bill. There's another really good renters' rights bill that failed this year. And that's an area that frankly, like the legislature has not done well on the whole. There's some really powerful special interests who lawmakers are close to and hear from all the time. And they don't hear from people, who rent apartments and have to deal with like that system. I think all the time, like the problem that you have with lawmakers is that, it takes, a lot of flexibility in your schedule. It takes a lot of, you need family support to be able to do that job. You need to like, it doesn't pay very much. So you kind of need to be independently wealthy, or at least like, independent, like stable, financially stable to do that job. So what that means is that I think all, if not like the vast majority of lawmakers are homeowners. They're not renters. They're not, people who have to, rely on quarters to do their laundry. And that just like creates some blind spots within that body. And so that's why it's really important that they hear from, people with experiences who are different than theirs, because those experiences matter. And like, you can't pass good policy if you don't have the life experience, or you're not tapped into the life experience of the people who that policy affects. And we see this all the time with like Medicaid and state benefits and SNAP programs and stuff like that. So it's not just like oh, you matter, Pat, it makes you feel good to be involved, but really like you have better ideas and for policy than a lot of those lawmakers, because they're not bad people, they just don't know. We all have our blind spots. So that's why it's so important for lawmakers to be really connected to the people who they were elected to represent.
Those are great points. I'm just sitting here like nodding my head because I think it's so true. And we wish everybody would run for office. Like we know it's not within most of our abilities, but even just like for your community council, a lot of the time to start getting involved in government. I live in Sugar House, and there are always open seats in our Sugar House Community Council, and you don't even have to be elected to that. You just volunteer. And I think it's a great way to start making your voice heard. And, like Lauren's saying, there are so many voices that are not in the mix here. And we would love to see everybody, being able to participate. And so even if you're not able to run for office or even have the time availability to be on a community council, following along with those things and making your voice heard by sending an email or contacting somebody on social media. I just think it is so it's just incredibly valuable is what I want to say. And just as your community member, please do it. Like I want our community to represent all of the people who live here.
I guess with that, how would someone find out how to be involved in their community council?
Great question. So I've been researching that lately because I think it's kind of more frustrating situation. So I was looking at Palmer Court and like where you guys are situated, and kind of trying to ascertain like where would your community council be, right? And so a lot of the times you can start at the county, but like my best friend is Google. Like I just the things I don't know, I just put in the search engine. And so, I think what I found was that you guys, I think, are like the ballpark, I think is the community council there. And so, I found a Facebook page that like had some information there. And so that's honestly where I would start is just like follow the Facebook page. Again, I think we've established I'm a stalker. So like I just start on following and just kind of seeing until I feel a little more comfortable and feel like, okay, like how do I find out what's going on here? And maybe you're more direct than I am, and so like they're on a Facebook page they're gonna be like contact information or um honestly, like I followed my community council for like so long before I even dropped into a meeting. So maybe I'm just like the poster girl for introverts here, but like, I think a lot of the time it is really overwhelming and a little intimidating when you can't, you don't know how the system works. But I'm here to tell you, like, it is, people want you to get involved, especially on your community council level. You can find the Salt Lake City Council. Their information is on, is it slc.gov? And you can listen into those meetings. You can, I mean, right now we're, at home doing things and that's not great. But I will say, as someone who's interested in civic engagement, it's been amazing because you can from home follow along with all of these meetings. You don't even have to like, show your face. So it's great for just like putting your little pinky toe in and trying to start understanding these things. And a lot of people don't love Facebook, but I will say it's a great place to get civically engaged because most of these councils share their live feeds on their Facebook pages. You can, again, like they will post important things, many times even neighborhoods have Facebook pages. So I know for sure there's a very active Rose Park um, uh, Facebook group. There's, probably the ballpark has one as well, where people can just kind of connect in that way. And I like it much more than, we've all heard, I think, about Nextdoor, and that just seems like people fighting about picking up after your dog and stuff. But I think like Facebook itself has, people are sharing information there. So that would be my very, very long answer to your question.
I'll just put in a plug before we leave. You can also, like, if you have questions about like how to get engaged or the legislative session or what's going on, you can always reach out to us. Like, no question is too small. Our handle for all our social media is at Better Utah. I'm gonna drop that in the chat. So like you can always like DM us on Facebook or Twitter, or you can send us an email. Our info@betterutah.org. That's like our, group email, so someone will see it, and we can have the right person answer your question. But there are lots of great groups out there, lots of good resources, just depending on what you're passionate about. And I think I'm really excited for Powerful Moms Who Care. I think like that's one of those groups, that's doing that really important community advocacy work. And I can't wait to see all the moving and shaking that you guys are going to do.
Awesome. Thank you. That was really helpful. And I feel like positive about, getting more involved and a little less intimidated. So hopefully everyone feels that way. Yeah. And if anyone has more questions, we have a few minutes.
I was just
You
going
can
to say
ask.
too, if you ever need a cheerleader, please just reach out to us. Like, I'm happy. Lauren knows, like, I'm happy to be your cheerleader and just, support you and egg you on to get involved, because I think that it feels so scary, but you can do it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So
Thanks for turning your camera on, Tamara. It's so nice to see you.
Yeah. And then if anyone is watching this, after with the recording, you can find more information about Powerful Moms Who Care, about the group, our meetings, events, resources, and news at powerfulmoms.org. That's the best place to go to find out what's happening and how to get involved and just find out more about the group. So, yeah.
I want to put one last plug in for our Better Utah Institute emails. Every Friday, we put out an email that just has like little things that you can do to kind of start getting engaged. So the way to sign up for that is to go to betterutah.institute.org. And every week we try to put, a big thing, but then maybe like some smaller things that are just those little baby steps to really getting involved. And also we have a huge project that we're going to be unveiling later in April, and I'm so excited about it. And it's just really encouraging and educating about like how to get involved with and civically engage in your community and your government. So look for that.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for being here on your Saturday morning and, learning about these important issues. And yeah, I think it's like a really important first step to get involved. And yeah, I'm really excited about our group and anyone just being more involved with the government. So
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Audrey. Thanks, everybody. Okay, well, we'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
Thank you.